Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? What a morning and afternoon. It is bananas. Quite a day today, and I'm glad to have you here with us. We are a company, if you're seeing for the first time, kind of a weird freak of nature in the Parthenon of available trading tools, and we're proud to offer customers a predictive timing solution that passes every hocus pocus guru test on the planet. And you'll see why we can say that here in a moment. Jim, yes, it's been an incredible day today, and I've been excited to come speak to you and show you some things. Chris, welcome. Mr. Temple, good afternoon. Mr. Lucas, wonderful. And so thank you guys for coming. We're unique in that we believe markets are predictable, in that there are times embedded into the market's code, so to speak, every session where we can reliably over time locate moments where we're anticipating up moves or down moves and react accordingly with a very simple entry system that we'll talk about in a moment. And so by the end of the webinar, we're just going to sort of ask you, did it work or not work? Meaning you're the judge today. I don't come with any type of guru credentials. I don't come with any form of presuppositions. How about that? I'm a participant in the experiment with all of you here today. I always want to be convinced by my own tool, by our own tools, that it's still working. And honestly, after 15 years, I may have become numb to it, but I'm as excited as you are to see what happened today. And so the premise of the program is relatively simple. Once you surpass your bias that no way, no how can we predict what markets will do, that's a big turning point for most people. And one of the reasons why they never come to fully utilize the power of a tool like this. I'm specifically referring to the TachEon program of our Parthenon of packages, our entry-level time package where we're able to deploy predictive indicators across any market you have historical data for. Today, we'll be looking closely at the indices, but we can equally monitor stocks and equities, commodities, and cryptocurrencies as well with equal satisfaction. When we look at markets as human beings, Homo sapiens, Neanderthals with shiny shoes, we lack the capacity to see large ranges of data with intricate patterns in their chaotic unfoldings. We're actually equipped with something psychologists refer to as the recency effect. We focus on what just happened and pay less and less attention to and give less and less weight to things that happened further in the past. It's one of the reasons why, as a species, many of us struggle with the same things in life over and over again. Why many people tend to work with the same type of a partner in life and wonder why they've gotten divorced 3 or 4 or 5 times even. We make the same mistakes over and over again. And so when we look at complex, large sets of data, we don't have the hardwiring to see what a tool specifically designed to decode that data might see. And so in many ways, our tools, the warp indicator in particular today, is a work aid where men like Elon Musk are shoving electrodes into monkeys' brains and now a human in pursuit of creating a computer brain interface. We're one step shy of that today, by taking all 16 cores of your Pentium 9 processor and turning them loose on thousands of bars of historical data to answer one very important question. Did the market today do the same types of things that it's done in the past? Are there any times where the market is consistently moving up or down lately? So say, for example, we turn the program loose on a subset of oil data, oil futures exemplified rather by this chart. A computer program designed to find patterns might discover that 1035 seems to be a launching point for many of the bull moves. And so if we were aware of that fact, if we knew that there was a greater possibility of markets moving higher at the close of the 1035 bar, it might present new opportunities. You might be inclined to purchase at 1035 tomorrow or the next day or the day after that, especially if that time sequence aligns with things you're seeing, a touch of the moving average, a bullish engulfing candle, or a volume spike, perhaps. And so people who've studied these things, who've looked at trading as a whole, have determined long before we arrived on the scene that markets are not entirely random. There seems to be something in the fabric of trading and markets as a whole that points to a different set of rules. It seems like there are two tiers of operation in markets at an institutional scale. Traders at the retail level who are extraordinarily bright, entrepreneurial, and successful in their respective fields fail miserably when trading markets as though they were random. And banks and institutions like JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank and others who are continually fined for rigging markets, essentially forcing them up and down ad nauseum at their will, while fined with menial tiny fines in relation to their overall profits, succeed year after year. And so what if we presuppose that those are the rules? What if we opened up the game and while reading the instructions for Candyland or Chutes and Ladders, understood that this was really Monopoly, that this was a high stakes game where the people on Boardwalk and Park Place are the rulers essentially of the entire ring of properties. And so what we do each week is fairly unique. I don't think anyone else does this. We publish the times in advance for people who don't own the software yet to get a feel for our integrity. Now, pay no attention to the hairy bald guy here, this giant potato head man with his mouth open like a nurse shark, and focus more to the left side where you'll see a string of screencast links. And when we click on those links, there's an answer to the question. The question being, were there any times in the historical data over the last several weeks that the E-mini S&P had any regular irregularities? Were there any times where the market was pushed up or pushed down with a frequency that kind of stands out as unusual? If we remember our 1030 example in CL, are there any times on the ES where we can point to them and say, wow, that's happening a lot more often than I'd expect it to? And so looking at the chart, this is the map of time for today. These are the times presented in Eastern time for my computer. These times will appear local to your computer's CPU clock. Generated on our computers, though, we're all East Coast. And since Tuesday, the day that this link was posted to the page, verified with web server documentation, we can query the web server and see when the last edit was made to this page. And this screenshot was created 3 days ago. And several of you have actually been watching what happened. And 3 days ago, the computer said, hey, these are all the times that we're expecting to see potentially another down move. These are all the times that we're expecting to potentially see another up move. Does that make sense? The only reason these times exist on this chart, and we have dozens of them to reference to see overall if this works. The only reason these times are here is because they've repeated over and over again. Movements have occurred over and over again for no good reason other than they have, which seems to point in the direction of manipulation and non-random movement. Okay, so now we're going to look at those times today. We're going to look at them through two different filters. We're going to look at them as signals. What happened at the raw times in markets like the E-minis, gold futures, oil? What happened at the times in Bitcoin? Did they generally go up or down around those predictions? And then we're going to look at a specific setup. That is to say, what if we only traded in the direction of the trend as defined by a 120 period exponential moving average? What if we only looked for entries in the overall flow of the market? So for example, if the market was moving up, which today it was not, not at all. There were brief upshoots. However, overall, we finished lower than we started in many of the indices. But what if it was rising, like yesterday? We would pay closer attention to the times where moves upwards were happening regularly. So you'll see those times represented by white dots on our charts in a moment. And so if the trend is up, we're buying at the close of the candle that was predicted to be a buying signal, and then holding that trade until the next selling signal. In essence, we're immersing ourselves, we're entering a time window that has historically pushed prices higher for a season. There's an expiration date, though, on these milk cartons. When you see blue dots, those are times the computer has noticed there have been pivots to the downside over and over again. This is relatively useless to anyone who believes that markets are entirely random, that institutions are completely honest, and that we're all just struggling to determine the value of the instrument in real time, that we all have access to all of the information, everything is transparent and on the up and up. How many of you believe that's the case? That this is a fair game? We all have equal shots, and we're corporately determining the value of these instruments honestly and efficiently. How many of you believe there's a select few individuals in the world, though, that occupy mahogany-laden desks in giant wood-paneled rooms that their father and great-grandfather occupied, that have cell phones with the numbers of other people in mahogany-laden offices, and emails that are on servers no one ever sees, Many of those people do have friends in Congress, Mike. I believe that. And so your belief will actually influence the success that you have in a method such as this. And you're going to see some, I think, pretty surprising things in a moment. When those signals are counter trend, fun fact, there's a company online that will actually publicly disclose to the second when Nancy Pelosi has bought a stock. There's actually a fund of traders who will buy the stocks that senators and congressmen and women are purchasing. That is their entry criteria. Did someone from Congress buy it? With most recently NVIDIA purchases by Nancy Pelosi making headlines a month or two ago. You can search it. It's not too hard to find. If we run across a counter trend signal, like the one on this chart at 9:30, we're watching for a failure of that signal with trend. So if there's a selling signal, Mike, we're presupposing that the market will go down or sideways. Sideways meaning a reaccumulation phase, or down being the end of that uptrend and then a move away. But what if the candles continue to move higher and higher at a time that was historically a selling pressure time? It may indicate a change in the sentiment of that moment. If banks were historically selling at 9:30 on a Friday, for example, and it continues to rise with impunity, with no regret or remorse, and if it breaks our stop line, which is 1.5 average true range values away, it may be an indication that the banks who drove markets lower at 9:30 no longer have a taste for it, or their plans have changed. If that's the case, then the lack of sellers at a time we were expecting them may equate to a buying signal, kind of like a double negative. He's not a nice guy. So we're going to watch our signals for that as a potential entry in a moment on these charts. So we're looking predominantly for signals with trend as defined by the 120 exponential moving average. And we're looking for failures of counter trend signals that I call punctures. I tried to put together a very basic system that would allow us to examine these signals in the most basic of rule sets I could imagine. There will be some of you who say, I would have gotten out with $5, or I would have moved my stop to break even here, or I wouldn't have taken that trade because it was near the low of the session. All of those thoughts you're about to have are valid. This is a starting point in a conversation where none of these things should work. We're dealing with shadows and hallucinogenic figures here. This is magic of an order that most people won't even consider because the thought of it horrifies them. Why would I play a game that already has been won by someone else? And my answer is this: if we're able to find a statistically relevant edge that is predictive, if this works, and we know the times we're going to trade in the future, potentially, it eliminates a whole host of psychological bugaboos that we're susceptible to. You're less likely to move your stop farther away if the market is supposed to go up now and it doesn't. In the same way that I won't stand in my driveway all afternoon if the UPS driver hasn't arrived by 10:30 in the morning. I know that it's either there by 10:30, latest 10:40, and if he's not there by then, I'm not getting a package till tomorrow. Why would you keep your stop moving in the wrong direction if the market was supposed to move at a certain time? I'm less inclined to overtrade because I have 6 times in the session or 10 times in the session to look at. And most importantly, you'll see today, I'm able to hold runners because I know how long the window lasts. The milk has an expiration date. And so if we can define a statistically relevant edge that is predictable, there is a whole host of opportunities afforded to us. Last week's webinar, I referred to this chart. This is the daily chart of the E-mini S&P 500, the ES index. In last week's webinar, I specifically mentioned that the turning point was Thursday, as of the webinar last week, that the market highs would be put in and we would see retracements or consolidation in a reaccumulation phase. And I wanted you to see what's been happening since our meeting together last week. In fact, to highlight what's been happening at the Predictive Times, I've drawn yellow lines down to the candle that we were expecting to see the things we saw. And that last signal was on March 7th. And I want you to see what the market has been doing since that last candle. Can everyone see that it's gone into a zone or a consolidation range? In your GoToWebinar chat box, I've included what I've affectionately referred to as an answer key to help us understand what to anticipate at these times. And you'll see on page 13, if we reference a 150-year-old document, Richard Wyckoff, forgive me, Richard Wyckoff, editor of Ticker and Investment Digest, the founder of volume spread analysis in its earliest formations, tells us that the structure of an uptrend looks like this. And here we are now, some 150 years later. And I want you to see what track it's following. The buy signal at the bottom of this throwback occurred on February 21st, where I warned 18,000 people on our mailing list that the ES was about to rise. At that time, we were at approximately 50-50. We've since moved from that level, 50-25 to 50-50, upwards to new all-time highs. And we achieved an all-time high right before the State of the Union address on March 7th. Now observe how the market is going into what I call a bing-bing pattern. Those of you old enough to remember pinball games know that when the pinball gets stuck between two bumpers, the machine would make a noise reminiscent of bing, 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 bouncing back and forth between two bumpers. This reaccumulation phase is what's occurring right now on the E-mini S&P. And so once we've defined that range, we know that it's ultimately going to leave that area. Knowing what time you are in, what point you are in the cycle with predictive times allows you to determine where the window is, when to get in, when to get out, and what to expect when you arrive at those times. Any question about the daily chart right now? I always find it interesting to sort of see what the range of those movements are. And if we go back and look at the prior movement, just using the bodies of the candle as an indication, we can get a sense of what the institutional taste for blood is right now. And I think right now, if we cap off the highs, we can see that there's a very similar time in between the signals of the 9th of February and the 7th of March. It seems like after that first week of the month, they're reconciling their financial balance sheets, tucking away hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in profit to report to their investors and shareholders at the quarterly meeting. And so looking at this chart, one can't help but wonder what's in store for us on March 25th. These signals have been in their entirety since the summer of last year. I've been sharing with you what times to expect the moves to occur. And we've kind of moved from signal to signal to signal with an excellence unparalleled by a lagging or an indicator that's in the past, telling us what just happened. That's well and good, but now for the experiment. Remember when we started, I said we're going to look at what the times were for today, as shared with everyone on Tuesday. And I'd like to do that with you here at this moment. If we look at the E-mini S&P today, having started the market open at 9:35, we'll have observed together that the 120 period moving average was descending. In the indicator, it actually paints blue when the market is moving down and will change to white when it's starting to curl upwards. Now, if we go back and we remember our instructions, if we're looking for a signal with trend, the rules we've set before the game was played were predetermined. We'll wait for the close of the candle, enter in the direction of the trend. We'll put our stop 1.5 average true range values away from that signal and hold it until the opposite signal. In this instance, after the open today, the candle closes in the ES at 52.37. Our stop resides above us as a blue dotted line. And now we have a window. Mike, if we entered short at 9:35, what's the expiration date of the milk? How long did that signal have historically? How long was the window according to this program, which augments our ability to remember things in the past that institutions might like us to forget? 10:15 exactly. And so if we look at the maximum favorable excursion of that move, it's $34.24 to the low, or over $1,500, $1,700 per contract, theoretically. We finished that window relinquishing a portion of that with $16.25 now in the total move. Many of you would call that a day at that point. Many of you would have gotten out somewhere up here, or maybe even halfway down, and not had the fortitude to remain in these moves, because there's no reason for you to believe it would go down other than the screaming demons in your head telling you to get out. I'm susceptible as you are to those get out now, get out now, get out now voices in your head. As we continue on the 5-minute chart now, we can see entering at 10:50 and then exiting by 11:40 nets us a 4-tick loss. The market did move in our direction right away. It moved $250 per contract right away before struggling to keep that signal. The next move occurs at 12:20, and we actually finish in the negative, almost $4 at that point. We then arrive in the lunch period, 12:45, and come up into our first puncture trade Our first puncture trade involves the failure of the white dots to do anything. And so a failed buy signal with trend is as good of a trend entry as we can hope for. The people watching the bank have left their posts. And so we can rob it with impunity. If we enter one tick below this white line, I want you to see how far the market goes. There's really a sense of scale here today that we can't truly appreciate. It goes $450 in the direction of that move. And so we could confidently assume that by the time it comes back up, we would be in a break-even position at that stage. If you've let $500 go in your direction on the ES and not moved your stop to break even, there's something wrong. Then we come to the 210 signal. At the close of the 210 signal, it is in line with the blue. The blue is still down. The river is still flowing down the mountain. The stop is above the blue line at 52.28. And now we're holding that trade until 255. This puts another $9 on the board. So just to keep track, plus 16 minus 5 is 11, plus another near 9 is $20 of movement now in your favor, or close to $1,000 per contract. That's a pretty good day with one contract, I think. Now, we have a puncture at 305. Again, another failure of the white signal. It's dropping. It's still dropping. There are no buyers. Is it safe? And as soon as it punctures this white line right here, we're in the short. So I've gotten you to this entry at this point if you're following along at home with your predictive trial times. And now look how far the market drops down once it's puncturing through this line. Well past our break-even condition. In fact, the maximum favorable excursion is $15.50, $750 per contract, straight down at the failure of this line. We assume, of course, that you would lock in one contract at break even at this stage and be finished. Now, if you're a risk taker and you thought, hey, why not theoretically, hypothetically get short at 4 o'clock, you would have to exit 10 minutes later at 4:10 and take your 6 ticks. So in its entirety, the 5-minute chart from the open forward is net positive, $1,000 per contract. Your biggest loser was $4, or about $200 per contract. Your biggest favorable excursion, by the time we hit the low, at the close of the first bull candle, was $26. If you said, hey, I'm getting close to the buy time and there's a buy candle with a big wick right here, you could have reasonably assumed with discretion that maybe $26 in one trade was okay. Any questions about that? Any questions about those entries that we were using earlier? Because there were other entries available to you if you're not in the US market. If you're in London or Singapore or Malaysia, you had access to the earlier market times, the Asian session opening around 3 a.m. US time is 8 a.m. London time. And Mike, if we look at the 315 signal today and trade it in the direction of the trend this morning, the close of that candle is at 52.39.75. The candle then went 2 ticks against you before climbing all the way up to 525, $10.50 or $500 per contract. If you entered at 550, you finished with a whole 2 more ticks. So $11 of movement in the Asian session using the same times that have been available since Tuesday. Any questions? Okay, what did it do for gold? Let's take a look. If we look at gold on a 5-minute chart today, you'll see 2 days worth of signals. If you're trading precious metal futures, you'll see that we have yesterday's times and then today's times. For quick reference, I want to point out that, again, there's no possibility for shenanigans here. I've given you the times in advance for gold futures for today, as well as yesterday. So all of the times displayed on my screen right now, all of the directions displayed on my screen right now were available since Tuesday. And so when we look at the entirety of the signals, one begins to see that this program is revealing a world to us that is always lurking underneath the fabric of the news, that is always lurking underneath the fabric of lagging indicators which are lying to you. They're always lurking underneath the guise and slippery snake oily ways of the gurus who sell garbage to people every single day. And so we can be long at 525 and exit at 645 for a $360 move. We can be long at 835 and exit at 925 for a $70 move. We can be long at 925 and then exit by 10:15 for a $50 loss. We can be long at 10:15 and exit by 11:35 for another $700 move. We can be long at 12:45 and exit at the high of session for a $550 move. The first stop out occurs at 2:20 right here for a $180 loss. The next signal occurs after the market has closed at 4:20. If you're an existing customer, I have something I want you to consider. When you see the first stop out, of a trend signal, what is that communicating to you? Gladys, Ian, what might that communicate to you if we're following what is potentially insider information here? If we're moving when the mahogany-laden office guys are moving, if we're putting our signals, or rather our contracts, in the same windows they usually put theirs in, and we get to a buy time in an uptrend and we hear crickets, we hear quiet wind. Are there any buyers in here? Anybody, buddy? That can be the first indication that the trend is over. I want you to think about that. It's actually the genesis for the predictive trend signal in the Warp software. I just gave a class on it earlier this week. And so right here, Ian, if you'd come to that class, you'll see a vertical line printing now on your Warp chart. And that can tell you, hey, the trend might be over. Maybe you trade a micro gold contract with a stop above here and an entry here. And look what that yields. long before the moving average curls over. It takes hours for that to reverse. We have our first indication that it's occurred here. Okay, so 525 forward in that same span of time today for gold. Let's see if it provided any guidance for us today. We'll come over here and we'll just do a quick summation. 545, 625, basically zero. When does it close below the moving average? Here, basically zero. There's a puncture with a stop out. There's a puncture and we hold it until here, $400. Here's our entry and our exit in gold, $140. Here's our entry and our exit in gold, basically $10. We have a puncture here and a loss of 160, a sell from here to here of $210, a puncture, and then a loss of $250, a loss here of 180, by 110, another loss of 230, and then 255 to 435, another loss in a row. So 400, 540, 740, minus 160. Let me do this really quick. 1.5, 4, 6, 7.5. So this is a minus $200 day today in gold. I'm being very quick on the calculations and generous. And then on the other side, yesterday, 400, 1100, 1600. So 1600 yesterday minus $400 today in gold. Okay. How did it do with oil? Yeah, we can take a look at that. Here is the CL chart today on the 3-minute. And if we follow the same procedures, oil opens what, 9 o'clock? So 9:03, you're long from here to here. You're long from here to here. You're long at the puncture of the blue line until 10:30 for 33 ticks. Then you're closing at 10:30 and you get $240 in the direction of the trade. You can get out break even at that point, or if you take your stop loss, it happens right here, minus 22. The next signal is a puncture at 11:51, and you hold it until 12:36. Then the signal comes from 12:36 to 1:09. Then you have a signal from 1:42 to 2 o'clock. Then there is a puncture that comes up and stops out that signal. And then at 2:51, a small loss from 2:51 until 3:51. So 36, 41, 51, 54, 84, 70, 67, 65, $45. So on oil today, it was plus $450 theoretically, accounting for the times. Walter says, how do you know what time frame to trade? That's actually an excellent question, because Walter, one of the benefits of timing analysis is that we can look at higher and higher time frames, right? Walter, I just changed this 5-minute chart to a 60-minute chart. And the signal accuracy doesn't seem to change, does it? The buy dots and sell dots are kind of in the same window of accuracy. And if I change that to a 15-minute chart, we sort of see the same thing. These are the 15-minute signals today. The answer to that question, here I'm going to look at the camera while I answer this question. Salute. The answer to that question has a lot more to do with your personality. There are people in this room that I've met who trade higher time frames only. And so they're looking at 15-minute, 1-hour daily time frames. Many of those people, Walter, will trade options. They'll look for calls instead of buying actual contracts in the futures market. Then there are people like me who have the attention span of a gnat. And so, Walter, I'm looking down at the lower time frame. I need to get in and get out. I'm trading specifically my favorite market in the whole world is the E-mini NASDAQ. And so I can look, Walter, at 1-minute charts now and get my satisfaction immediately. Either stop me out and take my money or give me my profits. And Walter, I've found a very interesting thing. In all honesty, this is true. Over time, the customers who use this software end up following a very specific pattern. So beginner users watch the lowest time frames they're comfortable with. And many of you generally start around the 3 or the 5-minute mark. And then tell me if this is true or not. Many of you are longtime customers in here for 5-10 years. Over time, an interesting thing happens. The longer a customer uses the software, the higher the time frame they monitor and trade from, desiring to spend less time in front of the computer, having developed a trust in the method. That is an ES chart, Ian. I was trying to be consistent with Walter and show him the same market on different time frames. But Walter, does that concept make sense? Customers go from watching very small time frames, a 1 or a 3 or a 5, and then they either stick with it or they eventually migrate over to a 15, a 60, or even a daily, trading options in maybe SPY or QQQ. So my advice to you would be start with the smallest time frame you can because the risk is lower. Your stops are smaller. And then start to push out and see where your edge is, where you're comfortable. Vendors don't like to tell you that there's this answer to the question. Vendors don't want you to know that they don't know what your time frame is. They want you to trade what they do. Trade the way I trade, do what I do, follow me, and if you don't, you're a worm, right? It's your fault you didn't make money, Walter. Well, I don't believe that to be the case. I think you have to trade the way you're hardwired. Do you believe, Walter, that you're different than me? Your experiences with money, the way you were taught about money, how you feel about money, how tightly you hold on to it, your risk abilities versus mine are unique? Or do you think you and I are identical? We're different. Yeah. What I want you to know is that it works as accurately on the 1-minute chart as it does on the daily chart. Now, some of you are insane and you will take this to an extreme. You will put the 1 minute signals on top of the 5 minute signals, on top of the 10 minute signals, on top of the 15 signals, on top of the 60. And you'll trade when all of those things line up. And the beauty of this tool is you can do that. 100% can do that. Some of you will put the CL signals on top of the YM signals, on top of the NQ signals, on top of the RTY signals, on top of the ES signals. And when you see all of those different colored dots line up, then and only then you will trade. And that's fine. There are plenty of rooms in that insane asylum. It's okay. What I wanted you to see here, though, today, Walter, was that it's working on multiple instruments, on multiple time frames, that we can study these markets like the ES, like the NQ, and now see something that was never available to you before, the future. Everything to the right of this existing signal is already mapped out. This is what's going to blow your noodle. We're the only indicator, the only tool that's telling us what to expect in the future. All of those blue lines, blue dots, and blue lines and blue dots, white dots, and white lines are already there. And that's going to mess with your noggin, right? That's going to mess with your brain. Wait a minute. How can there be, right, this element of predestination? That's really what we're talking about. Yeah, of course it does. I'll go through all the training available to you here momentarily, Walter. It's actually quite sufficient. And so as we move forward in the future, you can see in the post session, there are already times that moves are expected. Since we've been here, the prediction was up at 411, down at 424, up at 437, down at 433, and up at 453. You can trade this stuff after work when you come home. And many of you do. Many of you have come up to me and said, I trade in the pre-market and I trade when I come home. But the fact that it works at all is bananas. The fact that we can look at the E-mini S&P or the E-mini NASDAQ and see these chances to get in and get out and have these opportunities to do this stuff is quite honestly bananas. Enter short at 937, exit at 946. $27 move is $540. Puncture of the white dot at 18.3, 18.50. How long do I hold it? I hold it until 10 o'clock. That's an $80 move. That's $1,600 per contract in one day. And again, if the 1 minute is too fast for you, go up to the 3. It's okay. The accuracy of the signals are the same on the 3 minute as they are on the 1 minute because time is fractal, just like Fibonacci retracements. You can use Fibonacci retracements on a 1 minute chart and a 1 week chart with the same expectancy. You don't like the 3? Go to the 5. Get in a trade and hold it longer. The software doesn't care, but I recognize that you are unique. Higher and higher and higher. Use the higher time frames for filtration of trend. That's fine too. Okay? So predestination, this idea that somebody somewhere knows what's about to happen, is not without merit. Watch. In gold futures, where we showed a net profit of over $1,000 over 2 days, a system that you could use to qualify for and receive funding for funded accounts from company like TachEon or Apex Investing. We're following what the banks are likely to do. JP Morgan paid nearly $1 billion for rigging precious metal futures markets, gold, silver. They used something called spoofing to make orders appear on the ladder that weren't really there. Now let that sink in. If you're watching volume and volume isn't real, why are you watching it? If you're watching order flow analysis and the largest institutional trading firm in the universe is putting orders into your order flow that aren't real, how useful is it? They can make things appear the way they want them to look, and then report record profits at the end of the quarter despite the fine. Well, we made $6 billion this quarter. We only had to pay $1 billion in fines, though. JP Morgan is like Elon Musk. He can get away with stuff because he's the only game in town putting military satellites into orbit. He can do all sorts of crazy things and say all sorts of stuff on Twitter, whatever it's named now, and move the market of the company he's the CEO of. Any one of us would go to jail for what he's done, but he can get away with it. And if there is a fine, it's so small as to be laughable. What do you think the largest bank in the world gets away with? And all we have to do is ask the question, what happened at the times that we were expecting things to occur? And if you think your favorite market is immune from it, I've got news for you. It's not. We can look at other markets like Bitcoin futures and see the same things are playing out. We can load Bitcoin on a daily chart with the same settings as we had with the ES. A matter of fact, I'll just leave it with the default values. Michael, when do I buy Bitcoin? February 2nd, February 14th, February 26th, February 28th, March 7th, and March 26th. When do I take profits? February 27th, March 5th, and March 15th. But Satoshi and blockchain and ETFs and splits, here it is. I'm looking at manipulation. So are you. None of this would work if it wasn't real. And can you trade it intraday? Sure you can. There are the signals. You could trade Bitcoin futures now intraday. Did you know that? In fact, if memory serves, I gave you the signals for Ethereum earlier this week. And we can look and see what happened on the crypto instrument. Walter, Did we know what times they were going to push Ethereum down 2 days in advance? Boy, it sure seems like it. But that's blockchain. That you can't manipulate blockchain. You can now. You can if you're the largest bank in the world. If the guy who manipulates his stock, Mr. Musk, is reporting record gains in their Tesla Bitcoin investment, don't you think everyone else has a little finger in that pie? Sell at 720, exit by 825. Sell at 920, exit by 950. Sell at 1055, exit by 12 o'clock. Sell at 1250, exit by 135. Sell at 205, exit by 235. Puncture of the white line, exit by 350. Ian, look, the first blue line has been punctured. Pretty good chance that the trend has reversed, and now we're going to move up. All using times that were generated 3 days ago. And I want you to hear me. I want you to understand you have a choice. You don't have to watch the fake signals. You don't have to watch the lagging garbage that these marketing companies cleverly disguised as trading tool companies with their snappy little emails with their stories about so-and-so who took $5 and turned it into $5 million. It hurts my soul when I see these emails or when people on Facebook post, I want to thank Mr. So-and-so for changing my life, and now I'm successful because of them, and click here for more information, and I just see all the garbage. And here, 3 days beforehand, and then 3 days after, plus $37, plus $68, plus $37, plus $21, plus $28, plus $36, and no one believes us. Completely transparent. No way to manipulate it. With the rules published in advance, the times published in advance, we just have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see. Now, if you would like this for yourself, if you'd like to know what's available in terms of opportunities tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday, the program that we're referring to is an indicator for NinjaTrader. NinjaTrader is available just about for free now if you sign up with any one of these funded account companies. Apex, Bullinox, Top Step Trader give out coupons almost daily for 90 and 80% off their fees. For $10, $15 a month, you can have NinjaTrader with futures data running in the background. If you click on the Learn More button, there's going to be a link available to you. Copy that link. I'll paste it into your chat box so you can follow along from home if you haven't already clicked there. This is TachEon TimeWarp. We've been around for 15 years. And the link at the bottom of the page is your ticket to success. This is the Willy Wonka golden ticket. I made it gold for a reason. I believe it's true. When you click on the Buy Now button, you're going to see a pop-up. If you're here today and you're a customer, you need to be in my live advanced training room. Send me an email. I'll give you the link for it. If you buy the software today, you get 25% off my live training room. I have a $200 a day per contract daily goal. We've hit that 3 times in a row this week between 9:30 and 9:45 Eastern. Today we were up over $750, $800 by, I think, 10:30 or so. I show the E-mini S&P oil futures and the NASDAQ futures, as well as a extensive analysis on daily time frames for equities that I'm following, like Apple, Home Depot, Netflix, Microsoft, and Nvidia, as well as commodities like gold and oil. If you want to participate in that, it is a negligible amount per month. Most of you will lose this amount in the first 10 seconds of tomorrow's trading and not blink. Please run, don't walk, and join our room, which meets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 Eastern. If you don't want it, you're a genius and you don't need me. Click on the blue, go to checkout without adding that. When you agree to the terms and conditions, there is a place to enter a promo code. It is still WARPOFF. I am resisting every effort, every person yelling at me from accounting to raise the prices. I have not raised the prices since before COVID. We're the only website, I think, that hasn't done that in this industry. I want this to be accessible to you. I showed you trades today in one market that covered half of the cost of this in one day. $19.95 with the promo code WARPOFF. WARPOFF. This comes with a video training archive, Walter. There are extensive videos that go step by step. There are also opportunities for individual training and mentorship, where we'll meet with you an hour at a time and go through the setups and the entries and the exits. This also includes access to our Skype group. If we look at our Skype group here, you'll see there's a community of people now, over 230 people in there right now, that are sharing their results and their signals with each other. They're walking each other through. And I'm periodically posting my own information into the room for people who need help. So we have an online Skype group of users that are successful, that are sharing their help with each other and their information with each other. So Walter, that may be of benefit to you as well. This is good for 2 computer licenses. You can put it on a desktop and a laptop. It is unlimited lifetime updates at the moment. There are no annual fees for this, and we update the software generally once or twice a year. Some pretty big updates available. If you haven't downloaded them yet, go to the Customer Resource Center, log in, and click on Software, and you'll see a download link for Warp. Make sure you have the latest upgrade if you're here today after being away for a while. Ultimately, guys, it comes down to this. I have shown you a way of knowing in the future when movements are likely to occur, based on a belief that the game is not fair, that this is not Candyland, this is not Chutes and Ladders, and there's a reason why your platform gives you 85 free lagging indicators. There's no value in the free. Most of us are handed something for free and we throw it out. And one of the reasons why I do what I do, I'm always asked that question. Why? Why do you do this? Number one, I'm really good at it. I'm an engineer by background. And I want you to see the power that it has to change people's lives. the power that it has to change people's lives. Every single person on here is a customer with a receipt who sat in the webinar with you. If you are an existing customer and you have not posted your reviews here, would you please take a moment by the end of the webinar today? I've put a link in your GoToWebinar chat box. Doug, Chris, Bob, Bala, Joe, Jason, if you would please do me a favor, and you'll see why in a moment when you click on that link. If you're here and you haven't posted your experiences, Tom, it would mean a lot to Ron and Rachel and Dave and Charlie and I if you could. Good, bad, ugly, warts and all, just share your experiences with us and with the world. It helps them understand what to expect on the other side of the purchase. And so if you want to get a sense of what people's experience has been over time, there's one of my bestest buds, Mr. Earl. You can get a really good sense of why we do what we do. I think we're a voice in the wilderness. I think we have something of value to offer, and it's changed the lives of people who've come here. And honestly, what other opportunities are you going to get in life to have a job like that? I love it, and I love you, and thank you so much for your support. I want you all to have a wonderful afternoon and evening. I wish you the best tomorrow when you go out there to trade. Remember, keep your stops tight, move to break even as quickly as you can, protect your profits, and recognize the game you're playing is not fair. There is a golden rule, and those with the gold rule. If we play by their rules and just change the way we think about the game, I think it'll change the way you approach markets. I think it'll change the way you think about when you enter and exit. And I think when your orders are being sucked into profit by the big orders of the people who run this giant, illegitimate universe, you're going to have a much better time. Please let us be a part of your team. We want to support you while you're out there on what I believe to be a battlefield. You need the best resources, the best tools, the best support possible. And based on 15 years of reviews, I think that's who we are. I want you to use JP Morgan's times against them tomorrow. I want you to use Deutsche Bank's times against them tomorrow. When they look back and they see your order getting dragged up with theirs, I want them to wonder where all of you are coming from and why they're not making as much money as they used to. I would love to make a dent in their pile of gold. Would you help me do that? Would you want to do that with us? I hope so. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine upon your handsome, beautiful faces. May the valley rise up to meet you, and may the mountains lay low before you. I say it every week. I mean it every time. We are for you. We are on your side. We stand along with you in your desires to be successful, to be better every day, to make more and more money, lose less and less of it. Whatever your aspirations are, whether it's supporting your family, traveling, a cause close to your heart, I believe your intentions are good, and we'll manifest those desires together as we move forward into the markets each day. Bless you all. Thank you for your support. If you need any help from me, please find me on the Skype forums. Email me, michael@backtothefuturetrading.com. I'm here virtually almost every hour of the day now, and I'm willing to give you whatever help you need. Just let us know, and I'll get you connected to the resources right away. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon, and God bless.